Scotland tomorrow morning.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yay! Welcome, everyone. It's a first. Betsy is here. Yay! Love it.
Oh,
All right, we'll
I'm
get
here in
Nora
Texas and
another
it's
day.
crazy hot. I don't know. I live in California. I don't know how people in Texas handle this heat. Oh my God. Woo!
Yeah. Yes. And it's more than normal for sure
It is.
everywhere.
It is. It's very humid. Very humid.
Yeah.
But I'm enjoying visiting Texas. I haven't been here in a while, so kind of nice to see the people, hang out.
Yes. Good. Good. So, welcome everyone who's joining us for this live. I'm really just so grateful that Betsy and I are doing this and taking it live. So, literally, we had a text conversation going, and then we both said, let's just do this in public.
Yeah. It's such an important I mean, I love you and I always that's why I reached out to you because, I can be a sassy mouth, as you know. Um, and but I just wanted to reach out to you because I was like, I know Heather and we can have such a great open conversation about this and so yeah, it's great that we do it because I mean, based on the response that I get from my writing, and the response that you get from your writing, it's a really important conversation to have right now, especially.
Yeah, it's a huge conversation. And just to put context, I wrote an article about sexual abuse, Epstein, and it was a two-part series. And I really struggled with it. Of course, such a hard conversation. I mean, so many things to talk about. And felt pretty good about where I got, but it was like, it's not great, but I'm gonna publish it. And then Betsy wrote me right away and was like, wait a minute, not cool. It feels like you're dismissing people's rage. And I was like, no, I'm not. Fuck no, I'm not doing that. And then I went back and read my article and I was like, yeah, I could see where that would come through. So
Yeah.
and that was
Yeah.
when we said, "Let's just talk about this in public." So, thanks for
Yeah. I just wanted, just because most people watching probably know you better than they know who the heck I am. I'm just some random person. So I made What the Bleep Do We Know 100 years ago now, and when I made that movie, I didn't even know how to spell quantum physics. Like, I didn't know anything. I was this random person that Will and Mark sort of plucked from Hollywood and said, "Come make this movie for us." And that's basically what happened. Like, I was no exposure to any of this at all. I had actually just started meditating through the Paramahansa Yogananda's thing, and it was like a written newsletter because the internet wasn't a thing, and I would get this written newsletter and read how to meditate. Like, okay, read the steps, and that's literally as far as I'd gotten, right? And so, a lot of after the bleep came out, like one of the things that this is now maybe 2005 or 2006, it immediately struck me that I am this person that made this movie, and suddenly I'm speaking in front of rooms full of 1,000 people. Um, and I was like, "I have no business being here telling any of these people how to be spiritual or what the hell to do because I didn't know." But, of course, I went and wanted to promote the film and did all the things, but as I began that process, it took me a while, and so my sort of, like I'm a deeply spiritual person, as you know, but my sort of, like, exposure into what we're gonna talk a little bit about today and where I came from when I sent you that message was having been really deep inside this world and watching what I term as the McDonaldization of spirituality. The sort of, like, really, like, clickbait sales funnel into this what should be a very deeply personal process become really bastardized. And I also watched a lot of people in the industry do a lot of very uncool things that never had any accountability for it. And I started with my book, Tipping Sacred Cows, to begin some of that conversation very gently. But since then, when I see it, I have to speak up because one of the things that I thought was really interesting about your article and why I was so interested is because you started really to talking about like how women have been treated over the centuries. Like literally you talked about the witches and 9 million women being murdered, right? And then over and over again. And what I was responding to what you were saying was partially about that we're constantly being told to temper our rage, but it's very big in the new age spirituality and wellness industry. This notion that women are supposed to like, receive men and be soft and put out love and light, and any sort of anger or rage or calling out is less spiritual. And I've really experienced that a lot from a lot, especially a lot of women. So that's kind of when I saw that, it totally triggered me. But it also made me go, we have to have this conversation because every day now a new guru is coming out with that did something really bad and there's no accountability. And we keep having this happen to women for centuries. And the problem is nobody ever gets held accountable for it. So it just keeps repeating itself. So when you got to the part about rage, that's when I said, "Well, how much love and light do I need to fucking send before something changes?" That's kinda where I came to. So there's that.
Yeah, love it, love it. Yeah, and it's such a problem in in spirituality in general around just forgive, just think positive thoughts and it'll all be fine. And I was reading something that you wrote recently of like, can we just admit we're part of the problem? And you've written about
Yeah,
this too of like, yeah, I used to like overteach that early in the early days and we've learned of like that's fucked. Like
yeah.
you can't just think your way into things being better and teaching people that there's just so much harm being done now. So I'll just say just overall, I'm really working with the people that I work with directly to emphasize over and over again, like, does manifestation work? Yeah, it does. Does it work to think you're the way you think it's gonna work? Nope.
No more something is gonna come flying out of your ass if you meditate for 12 hours. You gotta get off the meditation cushion and do something.
Take some action, exactly. And that even if you're a good girl and you do it right spiritually,
What
you're
does that
still
even
gonna
mean?
have
Mm,
like, life is still gonna happen. Like, so
yeah.
this idea of I can't tell you how many people have said to me or, like, have talked about, when I had a fire that went through our land, people were like, "Oh, it's okay. It must have been meant to happen." And I'm like, "People, let me have my grief. Like, give it
Right.
5 minutes before you start doing the placating of like, it's all fine. It was meant to be." So,
Yeah, I think the problem is that, one of the things that you mentioned in your essay that was interesting, which you talked about Monica Lewinsky, which was I thought was interesting because she's pretty much always maintained. I mean, she recently started to shift this that it was consensual. And then during the Me Too movement, she did come
shifted.
out and
Yeah.
say, "Well, I was young and it was impressionable," and that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
But you talked about how people shamed her. And it's interesting, like a lot of what we're going to talk about, people that are listening today, like I just want to offer an invitation. As Heather knows me, she knows I'm blunt and sassy and I'm not very soft and woo woo and don't do a lot of oohs and ahs. I say it as how I see it and don't take it personally. Take it actually with love. But some of the things I might say today might push up against your beliefs about your spiritual practice, about what you've been taught. And I want you to just be with that because this is stuff that I had to work through and we all have to work through if we're really going to have an industry, because the spirituality and wellness is an industry. It's worth $6.1 trillion a year. So it's an industry and it's time for us. I'm kind of uncool and a little bit outside of the industry now, but it's very important for the people within the industry to start really having a hard look at what we're teaching. And part of what we've done, so you talked about Monica and you were talking about the people that reacted to her, right? And they were shaming her. And that's a very patriarchal response, even from women, because women will go after other women harder than they will men. And that is very much also steeped in the spirituality and wellness industry. This judgment that other women will do against other women. And, I've watched it. I've sat in rooms with women talking about sexual harm committed against them by very big named gurus. And I've watched other women counsel them, like you said, except it wasn't your land. It was, well, you know, this is part of the journey. And I jumped up in the middle of those rooms and said, fuck that. This is not part of this journey. You know, so we have to start asking ourselves, and part of what the big things that was interesting was that big things like forgiveness were being taught, that forgiveness is really for you, not for them. And if you forgive, you're going to be happy. But then the next part of your essay, you talked about women wanting to move on and us holding them to the place where they were when they were assaulted. And I don't think people do that. I think a lot of people get stuck because we've just continually witnessed people not having any accountability. They have redemption arcs. I mean, Deepak Chopra is going to be in the middle of a redemption arc. That man needs to be under indictment. And nobody is saying that out loud. And in 2021, reputable allegations came out against that man. In 2020,
Yeah. Yeah.
no one did anything about it. And now he's chilling for like a villain for a little while. And you watch, in 6 to 8 months, he'll pop off. And we have to stop that shit. Pema Chodron and the Shambhala. I mean, Tony Robbins, we could go on and on and on about these men. And part of the problem is that women in the spirituality and wellness industry are protecting their brands. They're protecting their audience, their numbers. And part of this thing about not being rageful is that we all go, oh, well, if we act out and if we act like Betsy, who just screams and yells, then we're not spiritual. And I say that is damn spiritual. It is like accountability is part of the process. Sorry, I got off my rant. I got on the rant.
Keep ranting. It's true. I think it's really true. And where I keep holding is that how do we stretch to hold the many contradictions of the times that we're in? And it's like all times, right? It's not like this is new. There's more, the harm is more visible. And I think people are slowly starting to be held accountable in some industries. It hasn't hit the spiritual industry yet, and I'm praying that it will. I look at it, I think it will eventually.
It's not, Heather, unless people, women especially, start speaking up big time. And part of the problem is that I don't understand what that means, holding the contradiction. There is no holding the contradiction. The problem that we've seen in this industry, which is pretty much the same in any industry, which is that men behave badly and women who speak up about it get pushed out, and the women that don't get promotion. That is very much, if you look at the women behind a lot of these men, they all have book deals, they all have brands, they're all calling themselves whistleblowers. I forget the name of this woman who, I don't even know who she is. I didn't know she was famous, but she came out with an article about how she was the whistleblower about Deepak Chopra. And I was like, ma'am, you are not the whistleblower. The women that spoke up about Deepak Chopra, and those people are the whistleblowers. You're just repeating, not riding on the backs of their trauma. So we have to start speaking up, which is where the rage thing comes in, because so much of the industry and the people in it are afraid to speak up because it's so judgmental. You're not feminine enough. You're not goddess enough. If you talk like, I can't tell you how many times spiritual women have told me that I need to find my feminine. I'm like, girl, I am very connected to my feminine. It is right fucking here, and I know how to use it. So we've just had this whole conversation about what does it mean to be feminine. It's all misguided information that's literally designed to keep women quiet. If you go and you look at everything that you've been taught by most of the spiritual practices in the Western movement, it is designed to keep women quiet. Go back and look at your teachings with that lens, and you're going to go, holy shit. rage. So I don't understand why women are not out in the streets every single day. I don't know why we're not yanking these gurus into the middle of a friggin' circle and beating the bejesus out of them. I mean, that sounds violent, but at this point, n how many more centuries are we gonna keep going with this narrative before women stand up and go, "No, not anymore. Not on our watch." That's my rant.
Mhm.
Sorry. I can't there's lots of comments flying up, by the way, and I can't see them, so I don't know where they
Yeah,
are, but
there's a couple, some Bethany shares, "Not spiritual, rage is sacred," which super agree with. Like, I love rage,
so then
and
what does it mean? Like, what is the so what do we do with this then? What do you think we do with this?
yeah, to take rage into action. Because what I see and what I was trying to comment on is that what we often do with the rage is turn it against ourselves because we've been taught to turn it against ourselves. I shouldn't be angry. Oh, I should be more spiritual if I'm angry. And so we end up turning against ourselves and shaming ourselves or making ourselves feel worse about it. Or I think we also can then ineffectively project it out without taking action. I'm just gonna be
Yeah,
rageful at this person, but not take any action around it, which does, and that's what I was trying to name is it doesn't help for us to just sit in the rage or just be pissed at other people if we're not gonna take action. Because
right,
then you're just soaking, it's like having really gunky water that you're just soaking in, rather
yeah,
than, "There's something wrong with this water, I'm gonna take action. Let me go
right.
do something." And what do we do? This is the question. How do we no, I think about all the women that took Weinstein down, for example, and how long it took for that to happen.
Well, and
In the
let me ask you a
Yeah,
question because this is the thing that I think is interesting is because a big part of the messaging around rage and around anger is that it's a negative emotion. So then we're not taught. So we have this reactionary, clumsy response because we don't know how to respond. So, I did a post the other day and it's got like 7,000 restacks or whatever, which is crazy. And all it said was I watched a video of a woman saying that if marriage was beneficial to women, they would be taking it away from us. And I got tons of restacks, right? And what I noticed about that was like women, and it's, look, Substack is about 70% women, right? So it's mostly them. But it feels like, okay, I took an action, I took an action. But at this point, what should women, how do we learn how to do that? Talk about acting out in our rage in a way that takes action that makes change.
yeah, and that's the question, truly. And I don't the answer is I don't know. I don't know. There's We have a fucking president right now that is a convicted rapist, and E. Jean Carroll, bless
Mm,
her. She, she is my heroine because she just kept like, fuck you, I'm going back in. I'm going back in. I'm going to hold you to live, and she's won over and over and over again. And it just
yeah,
went to the Supreme Court and they backed her
yeah,
that she was, in fact, raped by Trump and then he slandered her.
yeah,
So, I think having conversations like this, where we start to really honor the women that have spoken up
yeah,
and hold them, and this is what I was trying to do in the article, is how do we honor these women that are, I mean, that are speaking out and then being so misaligned and pushed against and questioned, and they still keep, and we're seeing just a tiny tip of the iceberg, right? No,
yeah,
the that what's still in play that we need to keep talking about is that women are being harmed. They're being raped. They're being sexually abused by people that are supposed to be taking care of them. That they're being beaten by, again, people, and uh, I mean, we could go on and on around this. Period. So we're getting a tiny iceberg of the women that are starting to speak out, and those women that are speaking out, I probably 60, 70, 80% of them are having to battle the police, the court system, their families who are saying, "What did you do to deserve this?" And that's
Right.
so fiercely in the collective, it's your
Right.
fault, right?
Right.
Patriarchy. Make it the woman's fault, make it her fault. What did you wear? What were you doing? And so, how do we support those women and say, "I see you. Thank you for standing up and using your voice. Yes, the system is completely broken." How do we support them without then holding them to that has to be their role?
But we
Because
don't
there's
have
also
we can support them. I think those are 2 different things. Like, when I speak up, some things that I do, because I think, first of all, it's really women have been told to shut up for so long that for some women, it's scary to speak up, and I really honor that. I've never been very good at shutting up, so that's not been a problem for me. But for some women, it's scary, and so just in the sense of giving yourself permission, so wherever you see it, however you can, speak up. Is it if you see something, say something is a famous thing, right? But that doesn't mean you have to barge into the room screaming loud like I do. You can start speaking up. You can go stand next to the if you're on a bus or in a public place, you can just go stand next to that woman. I do that all the time. If I see a woman that's in an uncomfortable position or maybe nothing's happening, but if she's still all by herself, I will just go stand next to her. There's little things that can help you feel like we're changing the energy here. We're letting the world know that this behavior is no longer okay, you know? And giving yourself permission to do that is step 1, I think. And the other thing is if you see something, say something and you can just say, "Hey, I see what's happening here. I see this. I'm seeing what's happening here." And we don't have to hold those women as some sort of warrior by themselves. They're doing their journey, they're doing what they need to do and what they chose to do. You know, I called out several women who knew Deepak personally, who were all over Facebook silent. And I went on to their pages and said, "You're being very quiet about Deepak right now. What do you have to say about that?" I don't nothing they can't hurt me. I mean, at this point, I don't care. That's me. But, you can also quietly defund anything you're doing about Depop or any of these other things. I'm a big fan of follow the money, so there's quiet things that you can be doing. But, you know, I I read this really good article and I did restack it on my post and really powerful. And it talked about we have to stop fighting the patriarchy and start changing our behavior. And I thought that was a really, I'm sassy and love a good argument, so I'll always go fight the patriarchy. But I really liked the idea of changing our behavior, choosing differently. So stop playing their game. And there's millions of ways that you can be doing that aren't going to put you out front and center, but you are actually, whether you believe it or not, one small silent piece of rebellion, you are standing with those women. And you don't have to hold yourself like, "Oh, they're doing it and I have to honor them." Yes, you should honor them, but start honoring yourself in the little things that we are doing because it's going to take massive shifts to break this system. And we're starting, but we're also going to have to get loud and proud. Gonna have the rage is going to have to come out. And the warrior women are going to have to start standing in the streets and being loud about it. And I think that's what I think is what permission. I wish I would see more spiritual teachers saying, calling on that, talking about, let's start here are ways you can put your rage into action instead of us being constantly saying, be conscious and thoughtful of your rage. It's true to do that, but at this point, we need as many women in any way that they can speaking up and speaking out.
And
So,
I love that because it's so true. There's so many ways, and I think it can feel so overwhelming. And a lot of the folks that I talk to, I'm trying to keep breaking the paralysis because I
yeah,
can feel it in myself at times. It's just
yeah.
so overwhelming.
Mhm.
And so to keep breaking the paralysis of we actually have way more power than we think we do,
Yeah.
especially when we're working together and supporting each other. And that there's a level of I love what you said of that level of being really conscious just when we're in the world.
Yeah.
I'm as I travel now, there's a part of me that's available. I'll say that, and I think all of us need to become more available, is if there's a woman in trouble, if there's somebody who's being sex trafficked, if there's something that I can interrupt, please let me be available. And just that little level of awareness then, instead of everything's fine, I'm not gonna look,
Mhm.
it's possible, and I've had this experience where it allows us then to see something that we might have ignored in the past because we're
Yeah.
trained to keep, you know, mind your own business.
Yeah.
And
Well, and
so that place of I get to have my awareness big to
mhm.
see, let me just go stand next to this person. You don't have to say anything. And
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a lot of really good questions. I'm gonna just say something. You know, unlearning the patriarchy is feels really impossible. Um, but part of what I look for and what originally triggered this conversation was languaging, and it's really tough because personally, a lot of what comes out in the spiritual world these days is just like spiritual mumbo jumbo. It's a lot of circular talk that literally says nothing, right? And so, and it's a lot of buzzwords like forgiveness and softness and consciousness and being present. And what happens is I'm really careful now about, let me reread that again and figure out if they said anything. Oh, they didn't say anything. So you have to look at your own languaging, because a lot of us have learned this languaging, and we're typically just repeating the languaging we think we understand. So a great way to start to unlearn stuff is to ask yourself, what am I saying? And what do I really mean? And make sure when you start really getting clear about the language that you're using, you can actually start to go, wow, I didn't realize that that was what I was saying, but now I understand. I mean, an example might be like when you said, for instance, the fire happened and you wanted to be in your grief for a minute, right? But everybody wants to help you and make you feel better. So then they want to repeat back to you the learning that, well, the universe has plans or whatever that buzzword might be. Check in, go, wait, why am I saying this? Am I saying this because I mean it? So learn your languaging. That was a big thing for me. I'm a word person. I prefer to write more than I prefer to be on camera. And that was really big when I started to even unpack my own languaging of how steeped it was. And then the other thing is just little things, like big things are like, where do you shop? Like, where do you spend your money? That is a big way to be a rebel without doing anything, but
Mhm.
not spending your money. Check in, for instance, if you're buying books from spiritual authors and things like that, who's their publisher? Like, I've taken it now where if I'm interested in somebody, I go look at who their publisher is, and if they're publishing somebody else that I don't want, I will send them an email that says, "Gosh, I really would love to buy the book by this author, but unfortunately, you published that author, and I just can't do business with that." You think, "Oh, well, I don't wanna hurt the other author." No, we have to all take personal responsibility, and I would never let an author publish my book if they had other authors in their library that were accused of and or convicted of causing harm. So it's like really detailed stuff, but the more that you can begin to look at how am I languaging, how am I participating, how am I spending my money, and can I be more present? The amazing thing, we saw this with the ice raids, when one person stands up and goes, "Hey, there's a problem." Do you see how many people show up? So you won't be alone. Like if you're sitting out in somewhere and you see something and you want to stand up, chances are there's 100 other women in that space that haven't seen it that will come to your aid. So those are just some things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And, to go back to Bethany's question and share is around how do we unlearn and get to that place of rage being empowering and not silenced? That I think one of the first steps, like you're sharing, Betsy, is to honor that rage is energy.
Mhm.
period. It's energy. And to then look at where are the things that I've learned that tell me anger's bad or wrong, or that rage is bad or wrong.
Mhm.
And and to there's this whole thing around power. I think that we've been shown so many models of power hurting and power over, and so part of what I work with myself and with others is that power's neutral. And for us as women to be like, "Oh, well, I don't wanna be powerful because I don't wanna then harm others," is part of the problem. We have to be more powerful. And do we somebody asked, "Do we raise warriors to become warriors?" Yes, all of it. Like, raise women to use their voice.
Yeah.
Train your girls
Woo,
to
I got one of
be
those.
exactly who they are. Yeah, and right?
I got a
Yeah.
22-year-old. Woo! But there's a warrior, it's all within us, like, you know, not to sound woo-woo or anything, but we all have our ancestors in us. And women there have been women for a century and centuries of our lineage that have stood up and been powerful. And we could just find that again. It's sort of like you've been walking around with blinders on. And when you first take the blinders off, it's like, woo, it's so bright and you don't know what to do with it all. But eventually you take little steps and you start to find your way. Just by taking little steps, and be present with, how does it make me feel when I say no? How does it make me feel when I say no to someone? These are the little things that you don't even know are programmed in your head, you know? How does it feel when you say no to your husband? How does that little things, and you start to like feel it out, and then you will find the way that it's gonna feel really good for you. Somebody said, I raised 3 warrior daughters whose rage is so listen, I don't know, these girls that popped into these Gen Z girls, woo,
They're
they are ready to
fierce.
fight. And they need
Yeah,
to, 'cause
yeah.
I mean, they are looking this government right now is looking to take away every possible right a woman can have. We are literally on the front lines at this point. And so that's why I take to task, especially, I joke in a lot of my essays, I say, we have more access to spiritual teachings, meditation, every kind of product you can imagine for spirituality and wellness. And we are the most fucked up generation in a really long time, but we have all this access, right? How does that work? It's because, unfortunately, most of modern Western spirituality is not about truly finding, and all enlightenment really means is to know yourself. There is no magical ascension. Ascension is death. That's what it is. You die. That's it. It's not like you're going to pop off and become a unicorn. Um, so it's just this sort of Western spirituality is like a romance novel about ourselves. It's not about that true, deep connection to myself and my community and my planet. We've kind of lost all that in favor of manifestation and all these quick fixes. And we have to kind of unravel that and really go back to the basics again. And that's going to take a lot of unlearning, and doesn't mean you can't get started with little things now while we're trying to all unlearn. I mean, those of you who have young children, I can tell you a day does not go by when my daughter will say, "Mom, you can't say that anymore." And here I am, I think that I'm pretty good, but she constantly, Mom, you can't say that anymore." "Oh, okay." Put that in my so you it's almost like a never ending unlearning, it feels like. And that just make that fun. I'm sort of accepted it and just sort of like laugh at it. Like, okay, if your intention and your heart is in the right place, you'll get through the unlearning at some point. But don't make that the struggle. Don't make it, "Oh, I've got to unlearn all this." Just say, "No, today I'm gonna take this action, and that will help me feel out this new thing." That's the way I look at it. Syllable says, "No, we are not." Well, actually, if you look at what's going on in the world right now, with all the meditation courses and everything, you'd think we'd be pretty peaceful at the moment. Unfortunately, we're not. I don't think turning the wellness industry into a $6.1 trillion industry has helped. Um, And, we have to this is
Yeah,
a big fight, I think.
yeah, yeah, and it's mixed. I mean, I think it's just we can't there are places where women have way more freedom. This is what I always see is that women in the United States, not around the world, right? In the United States, we have more freedom than probably our grandmothers had in terms of choice, in terms of and we're losing those freedoms, which is completely insane. So to
Yeah,
just name that. And what I see is we don't have that same level of freedom inside. It hasn't
yeah,
caught up. And I think that's what's so challenging is what I've seen in the just in my teaching over the last 30 years of working with women is that when I first started teaching, there was this understanding around women's empowerment, and there was this sense of fight and this sense of we have to speak up, we have to get into the streets. It was much, much stronger than it is now.
yeah,
And in my experience, and that what I've started seeing is that women as women got more freedom and then the whole energetic started saying, "See, you have your freedom. You can have whatever you want to."
right,
It then turned to there's something wrong with me.
right.
I'm not manifesting properly. Like that whole thing. There's something wrong with me. And so that's what I see now is a lot of women in Western United States as they get more empowered and meditate and do all the things and do spiritual practice, that gap between I should be able to change my life or I should be able to be rageful or I should be able to be quiet. I mean, whatever it is then used against them. They use it against themselves over and over and over again. The level of our own self judgment has gone way up. And
Right,
partially it's because of the industry, and partially it's because it's how you can control a people if you make everything their fault.
right.
And they're trying to like, this is what's so crazy
Well,
too is
working
let
is
me
profitable.
self-actualized yeah, let me self-actualize by looking at everything I could be responsible for instead of, "Wait, you're responsible for that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna call that out."
yeah. Well, we've been taught I mean, what I just said is, broken is very profitable. And somewhere in the last, especially 25 years, with the sort of evolution of the spirituality and wellness industry, is that this constantly finding reasons that you're broken sells.
Yeah,
And people will pay for that, especially women, because women have already been programmed to realize we're broken, we're to this, we're to that. So there's always a course, there's always a book, there's always a product that's continually going to tell you, "Oh, now you're broken this way or now you're broken that way." And the what I wrote about this recently. I said, "Well, what would just happen if I'm just who I am?" And all the things that happened to me in my life, whatever traumas and whatever things, I've done my work and really talked about them or faced them or did ayahuasca or whatever the hell people do to deal with that. But then I don't have to then go and do this course because it's not gonna take away what happened to me. That is a part of this mosaic that is me. And if I just sort of embraced it instead of trying to fix this thing, I have to stop doing this or I have to fix it that way. What happens is like I start to feel more free. I start to feel more better about myself. I don't big for me recently, like, in the last year, I just quit wearing makeup, and I quit worrying so much about it. It's just like and I felt so much better about myself. So, broken is profitable. The modern spiritual and wellness industry is like everyone goes after big pharma. I think the spirituality and wellness industry does the same practices as big pharma and everybody else. Same tricks, different pony. When we start to really look at those tricks and go, wow, in big pharma, they want to keep you sick. In spirituality and wellness, they want to keep you broken. That doesn't mean it's all bad. It just means as consumers, we have to be more discerning. We have to start looking and saying, how am I getting caught up in this cycle? And how is this cycle not empowering me while convincing me that I'm going to be empowered?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and Sarah, you're so correct. What we're talking it's a very bougie I mean, we're very narrow white women in the wellness industry, like we're talking about a very small slice of the population is the truth, and that has a huge
What is
impact.
that? Tell me what you mean by that, because I actually disagree. I'm talking about the wellness industry,
Versus the spiritual, yeah.
which is very bougie, and the spirituality industry. People, I mean, retreats and courses and ayahuasca retreats. I mean, it used to be that ayahuasca was this deeply sacred experience. Now, by the way, if anybody's thinking of going to Rhythmia, be very careful and read about many of the assaults that have happened at that place by those shamans. Now you go pay $10,000 and you can do it. You
Yeah,
know?
so
So
yeah,
bougie in the fact that, yes, the spirituality and wellness industry has been co-opted by the white women and by rich people. It's no longer this incredibly deep spiritual practice, it's a product. Now you got Babananda here in LA who's gonna tell you he's got ayahuasca and you pay him $700 and you can do it on the weekend.
right.
So this is very big, and it's not, there's people deeply working to do their own spiritual practice, and then there's the industry. So when I refer to the industry, that's what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the fact that you've got retreat centers now of these cultures in those countries, because those cultures and those people in the tribe needs money because their land is being taken over, and some person will come in and go, "Hey, we'll pay you $50,000 if you'll come be our shaman." Of course, they're going to take it. They got to feed, like they got to take, and then it's so that is bougie, but that's the industry. I mean, Agape is a really big church, but I got to tell you, that place makes a shit ton of money, and there's not all such a great stuff going on there, and that's an industry. We have to look at this as an industry and ask yourself, do I really want to contribute? And how do I contribute to a place or a practice or a community that's going to truly lift me up?
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
and I think that's a really good place to look, and this is what I was talking about, the like, being in the contradiction and the tension is that, like, we get to make choices of where do we spend our money. Like, I would much rather put my money into bookshop and into a small artisan on Etsy and knowing that's going directly than Amazon or than someplace else.
Right.
And we're on Substack.
Right.
There's a lot of nonsense in Substack of, like,
Yeah.
who's being promoted because they have big platforms.
Yes.
And
True.
so, I went through a big battle with this a couple years ago. Like, do I get off Substack? Because I know that there's harm happening because there's white nationalist
Yeah.
movements that are happening on Substack, for example. Um, and and I had to just make a choice of, like, I'm staying on Substack because it gives me the tools I need to get my voice out. I can change my mind around that. But for me, that's holding the contradiction.
Right.
And that I think sometimes we can get paralyzed of, like, I have to do it perfectly. There's no fucking way to do it perfectly because if you drive a car or you put clothes on or you, like, there's no way to get out of it unless you go off grid someplace and grow your own food and your own
Even
clothes,
then,
and
we can't really do it anymore.
we
But okay.
can't really do it, but we can be more mindful and educate ourselves and lean into other people that are doing the research. We also don't have to do all the research. There's other people doing the research.
Yeah.
No, and also let our dreams shatter. And I'm not saying it exactly, but I remember I have a friend who was very big in the Buddhist community. I grew up in Asia. I have, like, this fantasy, I think, like many of us, around Buddhism, like that they're
Yeah.
untainted, and then they started telling me some of the stuff that was happening in the Buddhist community. They're like, it's everywhere, like the
Yeah.
sexual abuse and the money and the finances, and, like, let go of the belief that there's a group of people that is untainted. And that was heartbreaking to me to
Yeah.
hear about specific people in high levels of Buddhism that are sexually abusing people, that are stealing money, that are and I let my heart break. And I let that dream go of there's some place that is purely sacred, because there's just not. Humans are greedy, we're power hungry, we're scared, and all of us are a mess in a way, and we're all genius and brilliant and wonderful. That for me is a contradiction, and to keep bringing ourselves to telling the truth and making choices from that truth. And you're so right. What it's going to take to change it, we're probably not going to see in our lifetime. But it doesn't mean we don't fight for it. We don't stand up. We don't educate ourselves and others. And that we don't be messy in the process as well. Like, I
You know
think
what?
for women, like,
I
stop
was
trying
gonna
to
say
be
be
perfect.
messy in the process. I think it's
Be messy.
be messy in the process. We have to give people a little bit more of a break. Not in terms of, like, if they're misogynists and rapists and all that bullshit. I say go call them out, like, let's do that. But if you know, one of the things that for those of you who have young people, my daughter's 22 and she's amazing. She's brilliant and she's smart. But sometimes I have to remind her, I'm like, "Hey, look at their intention. Like, listen to their intention." They don't sometimes we don't older people like us, this old ladies, old like us, like, we don't we just we know the words because 'cause they're so embedded in our language and our brains, but just check our hearts, and you can always I listen for a person's intention, and then I'll check their words and go, "Okay, wait." So even when I messaged you, I was like, "I know Heather. I know her intention." And what I was pointing to was the words, because especially when you're reading, a lot of the intention is sometimes missed because people are reading it and they don't really know. So I know her. I said, "I know Heather's intention." That's why I spoke up in the first place. But, y y we're be messy, but be not apologetic in a negative way. Like, sometimes I'll say something and I'll go, "Oh, man, that was an old program. Let me learn how to rephrase that." It's not I don't punish myself for it. I was messy. I was running an old program. I was telling an old story, and I was like, "Oh, I don't mean it that way." And just check in and go, "Whoops, okay, move on." You know? Be forgiving of yourself. This is hard. Like, if anybody's there's a really great book Michael Meade wrote it. It's called, I think it's called Why the World Doesn't End. And I interviewed him about it a long time ago, and there's this he has this word, and it's called apocalypsis, and he's like, "Do you know what it really means?" And it's like, it means it's not over, it's not the end. It's this in between where it's chaotic and confusing and messy. It's like have you ever seen a butterfly come out of a cocoon? It is the most violent, bloody, gory thing you're gonna see. And that's where we are. So when I think, when we were talking about rage, part of when the butterfly comes out of the cocoon, it's a rage-filled push. And I just want us to have more permission to do that, even if it's messy, because we need it now. We need more of that than we do restraint and protection and trying to uh, not speak up. We need more of that because if we're gonna make the changes that we know we can make, we have to be connected to our rage. We got to start being louder. And you know what? We have to start being more forceful and we have to start speaking up. I've always wondered, like, I love the No Kings marches. They're a fun Saturday afternoon. But, if you look at Albania and you look at all these other countries in the world, those people are in the streets and they have been for 15, 16, 17 days in a row. That's where we need to get to. And you know what? I don't know if this is a true story or if it's some fable, but it's happened a few times where women have stood up and said no more sex. It happened, I think, in a couple of cultures they made changes. And it's going to take that kind of action from women for us to really make this change. And in order for us to do that, we got to get a lot of women courageous. So that's where I hope when people are listening to this today and or listening to your work, that we're helping women become more courageous because if we really want to change this, we're going to have to be okay with standing up and saying no. We're going to have to grab our sisters that might not be safe and walk into their house and circle their husband and say, "You do this again, and I'm coming after you." We're going to have to do that because they're not help. No, these men and this system is not going to help us. We're going to have to help ourselves.
And hand in hand with that, totally agreed, is we also have to be more joyful. and laugh at ourselves more because that is what's going to create the sustainability. So I do really believe those go hand in hand. That yes, we need more rage and more action, but if we just lean into that, we're going to burn out. If we're going to be sustainable, there also has to be an understanding of what we're stepping in for and that we take turns.
So, yes, we take turns, but I'd like to offer something slightly different. When I take action in my rage about what's going on, I feel joyful. I'm already like, "Yes, I am standing up for my sisters. I am standing up for my children. I'm standing up for my planet. I'm standing up for my women, for the women." And that makes me filled with joy. And you're right. I'm also very good at self-care. You will notice that I will take a step back for like 5 days and go, "Okay, I need a break. Somebody else can take over." So that is true. But the joy for me comes in speaking out and saying, "No, I'm not gonna let you off the hook here. No." And I've had and it's also the joy is when I call people out online or I call them out in person, spiritual leaders that I know, people that I know, and I say what I say, and then I see the change in the real time. I see them go, "You're right. I did say that. I am doing this wrong." Because to me, it's great. Awareness is great. Apologies are great. But if there's no change, it's just a bunch of smoke at my ass and I'm not taking it. I want to see change. And when you start to see those little changes, that's joy, you know? Joy doesn't have to, I mean, I'd love to go out and party and dance all the time, but feel joy in, find the joy in standing up for what we have to do as women right now. The world needs us.
And that comes, you have a solid core.
Yeah.
You have a solid core that has joy there, and not everybody has that,
I know.
right? So we
I
can,
get it.
I mean, all of it's true. So I'm not negating at all. And how do we keep reminding, keep losing my little earbuds. 1 second.
It's okay.
And I think that's where in a way of like, we have to keep passing it to each other. And that's how circle works. I always say when I do circles of like, there's some days I will be able to hold and hold the container. And there's other days I'm having a really rough day and I'm going to show up those days too. And so how do we hold each other in that way? And Bethany,
Yeah, I was just gonna say to Bethany,
yeah, yeah, you
um,
have to on,
you gotta find your people. So I know in my heart of hearts, especially now, that there are more and more women groups and communities that are safe and coming out than there ever have been. And so like when I was in California, I just got invited one night to this like women that were gonna start sending postcards and it turned into 200 women. Started with 5 and turned into 200 women all in my community, and it just became this thing, and we started meeting up, like, every week. We go and we meet and we talk, and so there are those kinds of communities all around, so wherever you are, look on Facebook, you go, you test them out, you check them out, you feel like, "Are they aligned with me?" But there are more and more. I'm in here in Texas, and my sister got invited to one, and we just all went out, what, just the other night, and there was like 20 women and we had the best time, and then all of a sudden there was like, "Hey, if you need this, I'm here for this. Here's what I do." It's starting it's happening. So see if you can find people within your community that can build a bubble around you and sort of protect you. Because they women are there, they're out there. We just have to make ourselves known a little more. There's lots of great communities on Substack. And there's lots of great communities around. Just look, find them and they will protect you, you know.
yeah,
I've
yeah.
seen women communities recently that a woman I know in one of the communities finally, after being in the community for a year and a half, acknowledged that she was being violently abused by her husband. I watched all the women in that community go to that woman's house. There were 20 of them, 20, 30 of them. All of them went to that woman's house, packed up her and her children, and took her out. That's what women are starting to do now. And that's not a one-off story. I've been hearing about it a lot. Women are just showing up and saying, "Nope," picking up the stuff, protecting. That's what we're gonna have to start doing more.
Yeah, and be available for that. Like,
Yeah,
we have to I believe we have to create more space in our lives.
yeah.
If we're too busy and this badge of honor of, like, "I'm so busy," which I fall into all the time, but if we have more space in our lives, we're then available to be like, "The woman down the street needs help, I'm there." So,
And you can find it. It's hard. And I still am a full-time single mom. My kids are 22 and my
yeah,
son's 18. So they're grown. But I understand what it feels like when you're trying to like tread water and feed kids and work and do the things that you feel like you don't have space. But um that's when you go look for community. And I think what's one of the benefits of what's going on, I always try to find, because I'm an eternal optimist, believe it or not, I'm an eternal optimist. Um, I always find the benefits, and I believe that one of the benefits that's happening right now is for a long time, we got real separated. We got really stuck into our own worlds and our own bubbles, and one of the things that's coming back around is community. Um, um, and it's people are
absolutely.
searching for it more. I think it's beginning. I like just this group, they had just started this group of 6 months, 5 months ago here in Texas, and now they're like 50 strong, and it's just growing and growing and growing, and the community. And so it will, you got to find your right vibe of people, but also be open. I came here, I swim. I like to take the old lady aerobics classes because they're awesome, by the way. They're the best. And I take it when I'm in California, and I just started one here. And the women that are in that class, probably 10 years older than me, but they asked where I was from, what I was doing, and all of a sudden it was, "Well, what are you doing about the mosquitoes? And here's what you should need to do about this." And all of a sudden, I felt like I was just part of the gang, and they were helping me, like, because I said, "I'm so hot here, like, I'm getting headaches, it's really impacting me, I'm having allergies." And they were like, "Oh, do this and do that." It was like within one swimming class. And I could just feel that it was all women. Women are really here. Where I think you will find them, and if you don't, start one. If
Yeah.
you don't have one, start one.
Okay, so I'm gonna plant a seed with you.
Yeah.
We both have platforms. What can we do? I mean, this
You
is a
know?
start, but I
Yeah.
would love to, like, let's dream, and anybody who's here live, because this is a
And
conversation,
we
like,
could
what
meet
can we
up
create
one.
online? I'm way for yes, local community for sure, like,
Yeah, but
build local community, and what can we do online?
we can meet up online. Anybody who um subscribes to my page, and you can be a free subscriber. I mean, this is how I earn my living as a writer. So if you want to pay me, great, but you don't have to. But I had to close my chat because I got bombarded. I wrote something, and I got my live chat got bombarded by hateful, angry men. Because
Mhm.
if you read my stuff, you're going to find that I tend to be very sassy, and that's a little bit of a persona because it's fun, and I can I'm better at it. But we can. I communicate pretty regularly with my people. They send me DMs if need help, need community. But we can definitely, we should talk. I would like to explore ways in which the spiritual the spirituality and wellness industry, more so the spirituality, I say spirituality and wellness because that's what it's called, um, can evolve, and how people can unlearn some of the harmful practices that we've been taught. So we could even do a monthly, let's pick a topic and unlearn it. What does it really
Yeah,
mean? You
yeah,
know?
that would be great. Yeah.
What do you,
I'm
I mean,
about to Yeah, I think that would be great. I'm about to write an article, I mean, I've been pondering it for a year, that's called "Why I Hate Shamanism." And here's my contradiction, right? I'm the headliner at a Shamanism and the Divine Feminine workshop every year. And how I started is like, here's why the word shamanism is problematic. Here's why the word divine feminine is problematic. And yeah, we're here to learn about shamanism, the divine feminine. Here's why I hate it.
right, but it's a definite, the hard part, and I say this to myself all the time, is like we only have the language that we have, right? Like we've learned what we've learned. We only have the language that we have. So my biggest thing that I ask people a lot now is, what do you mean by that? Can you explain that to me? Like practically, what do you mean? So when somebody says to me, we just have to offer love. Okay, what does that look like? What do you mean by that? So that I can understand their languaging and what they mean. It's a big thing. I do it all the time, and some people get annoyed with me, and some people define what they meant, and then I go, "Oh, thank you for explaining. Now I know." Because a lot of times too, language words have even the word spiritual has like 87 different meanings depending on who you're
T
talking to.
truly, truly.
So just so we can explore I mean, I'd love to unlearn, like, let's
Month
if you go back, I'm a big nerd in researching where did this concept come from. So, like, the idea of forgiveness is like so taught one-sided now, right? Because it's taught that you have to forgive for you, right? But what's what they've lost in the translation is the person that did the act needs to forgive themselves and needs the forgiveness because in that forgiveness they can change. So it's a balance, it's a dance, but there's a whole teaching that's missing. It's like, you know what? Yeah, you need to forgive for your own self, but they have to change. They don't get forgiveness until they change, until they do the act. So there's a whole part of it. It's like, well, they need forgiveness too, but they're not getting it until accountability is had. And now it's just forgive. Well, then that's why the accountability pieces disappeared
Yeah,
because now
or don't
they're
forgive.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, like, I think that's too the place where it gets taken to the extreme of, like, you have to forgive. No, you don't. It's
yeah.
okay. I mean, I just talked to a really dear friend of mine recently. She was like, "But I can't forgive her, and I'm really struggling around this." I'm like, "Then don't forgive her." And she was just like, "Oh,
Oh,
like, don't forgive
yeah.
your dead mom. Like, it's fine." And then something gets to move.
Well,
All right, what if we do monthly unlearning? I love it. Monthly
I'm a
unlearnings.
monthly unlearning. I love that. I would say this, you don't have to forgive anybody, but don't let it consume you. And that's the
Yeah.
true
That's
teaching.
the
That's
yes,
the true
yes.
teaching. It's not you have to forgive. It's it goes back to what you were trying one of the things you were trying to say in your article that originally got this conversation. You don't have to forgive anybody, but you don't have to stay stuck there either.
Yeah.
You can move on with your life. So you don't have to forgive them. Anytime they pop into your head, you can think, fucker, but then move on. Don't
But
get
then move
wallowing
on.
in it for the rest of your life, you know?
Exactly, and same thing
Yeah.
for me with rage. It's like, feel the rage, but don't then, like, let it consume you, because then you're not gonna live your life. Then you're
Let it
still like,
yeah.
be rageful and then take action, because that's what rage is for.
Rage is something to give you it's the fire in your
Energy. Yeah.
belly, and
Mhm.
you can let it burn up, but the burning isn't non-action. The burning is the action. It's like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do with this? And if that today is I'm not shopping at Amazon, then that's your rage action for today.
Go.
Whatever
Yeah.
it might be, you know?
Whatever it might be. Yeah. Yeah, and that might be going and knocking on your neighbor's door and checking in and saying, "Can I" let me rage about the fact that women are the ones that are saddled with all the child raising and so many right? Let me go, "Can I just watch your kid for an hour, go do laundry?" Like,
Yeah.
or whatever, like, that can be an action. It doesn't have to be this is, I think, the thing too, like, this is a good maybe a good one to close on, is that the rage doesn't have to be a ragey action. It can be a
No.
completely loving, like, "Hey, I know this feels awkward, but I really honor you as a single mom, and I have a little bit of space, and can I just do you need help with me buying you groceries?" Like, anything. That could be the action.
Yeah, exactly. Because like we were saying in that the essay that I read that somebody else wrote, I can't remember, and you can go find it on my page. It's a restack. So look in activity, you'll see it. It where she talked about stop fighting the patriarchy, counter it. Rage, you're right, doesn't have to be a violent act. Rage can be, I'm going to do something that pisses off the patriarchy so bad because it's the opposite of what they want us to do. And I'm going to find pleasure and joy in that. That's rage. That's action on your rage,
Yeah,
you
love
know?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it.
I
What
love
a
you,
great
Heather.
conversation. Love you too,
Yeah, thank
sweetheart.
you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
thanks for writing, and, people, this is the other thing is why I wanted to come live with Betsy, is that we can be in conflict with people, and I have friends that were like, "Oh my god, you're in conflict. Why are you going live with her?" I'm like, "Because there's something rich is gonna come out of this. Like, I know your heart and that what a great way to just model. We don't have to turn away from conflict or, like, be like, "Oh, well, they're not being spiritual or they're not being nice to me. They don't like, I like, let's call each other in with love and get better, like, be more skillful." No, I made the decision. I talked to a bunch of people about that article. I was like, "Should I go back in and like, rewrite it or change it?" And I realized, no, it's like, that's the article, but I'm gonna attach this to that article.
Yeah, well, I don't look at things like this as being conflict. I mean, we have to have these conversations. If somebody comes to me and said, "You said something and I disagree with it," my first thing is gonna be, "Okay, well, what did you disagree with?" And they might
Oh,
say something and I can go, "Well, I don't agree." People are confused agreement with being right, and people
yeah,
are often desperate to be agreed with because it makes them feel valued. I've come to a place in my life where I don't need you to agree with me. If we could just not agree. And if it's something morally, like if you were a huge Trump supporter and all into his stuff, I would just say, well, we're out
yeah,
separately.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I don't need agreement. And I think people also, you have to get to that place where you're okay. I know that everything that I believe is this narrative that I have made up in my head, and it's my belief, and that's really all it is. It's how I paint the picture of the world. Doesn't make it true, doesn't make it right. So that therefore, I don't need an agreement. I don't need you to validate
agreement.
my beliefs. I don't need you to
Yeah,
validate me.
yeah, yeah.
I'm okay.
And
I'm
how
probably wrong about 95% of the things that I believe. Whatever.
uh,
It's okay.
yeah, and
Yeah.
how do we name that and unlearn together and let it be
Yeah.
messy, right? That's
Yeah.
what I appreciate about you so much, your willingness to be messy.
Are you is that a nice way of saying I'm being really messy, Heather? I am
Not at
totally
all.
messy. I am totally messy. And if I can model for everybody else that you can be okay and be messy, I am down with that because I am a hot mess like most of the time. But I feel really good about being honest about who I am and authentic.
Yeah,
And I feel like that
I
makes
love
me happy. I can
yeah,
just be who I am. And when you're in presence with me, for the most part, most people know that when I meet you in person after reading some of your stuff, like, they can feel that my heart is really good,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, and I love that, and Betsy and I met originally, we were, mutual friends, and then I was flying into LA or to go to Ojai, and I needed a ride, and I don't even know, randomly, we were both on Facebook, and I was like, "Would you wanna go to pick me up from the airport and go to Ojai?" And you were like, "Yeah, that sounds like fun." It was
Yeah, that's
so
also
great.
me. I'm the kind of person that will do anything for the plot. So, I'm like,
I love that.
"Sure."
Yay,
So,
let's do it.
thank you for this time, I wanna just tell everybody, I love you. We're all gonna get through this together. I hate to ruin the ending. Everything's gonna be okay. Stay strong.
Keep going.
Alright,
Thank you so much,
bye.
sweetheart. Bye, loves.